A great Rajasuya Yagya was performed by Yudhishthir Maharaj once in Hastinapur. And we know what this princely people like that. This Yudhishthir was a king he was a great king and he was Dharmaraj. So he held once a Rajasuya Yagya and at Hastinapur where everybody was invited and it was done on a grand scale. So now, if you don't know what is Rajasuya Yagya, you should read about it. Um, you should read about it if you have not yet come across this term on a just running quickly through it. I would say that it's a great sacrifice for marking someone as a king. So according to Puranas, it refers to a great sacrifice performed by the monarch, in which the other prince may from the other states may also participate uh, at the time of his coronation as a mark of his undisputed sovereignty. So that is Rajasuya Yagya. So when a Rajasuya Yagya was being performed in Hastinapur for this Yudhishthir Maharaj, all the Pandavas, Bhimsen was there, and everybody was present there. Uh, at that time, uh, the village people also got they also got into that celebration, and everybody was well fed and given many gifts at the time. So at the time when all this there were talks about some villagers, they were gossiping among themselves. So in the main, it's the main storyline. uh, So they were just gossiping among themselves when Bhim, who is the brother of he was one of the brothers about from the Pandavas, he just stepped in, and then he was calling on to people and welcoming them to the grand, spectacular Rajasuya Yagya. He said that he was hosting the event. It looks like, so he was like, "I'm your host, Devio Sajjano, and I'm here to guide you through this unique dose of tradition. And are you ready for the time of lives? And please put your hands together for the man of the hour, the my older brother, Emperor Yudhishthir." So the crowd then broke into applause. Bhim introduced few rishis who were present there for performing the ceremony of the Rajasuya Yagya. They all walked in one by one when their names were announced. You know, when it is a king, it's a celebration, it's a coronation of the king. So it's a royal grandeur, and there's an exhibit of all things royal. So one by one, these rishis walk in, their names are being announced, accompanied by flashing lights, the fake fog effects, and their own theme music. So the last of all who walked in was the DJ. Now, who is the DJ? The Arjuna. They say Arjuna, the Pandav brother. Jokes apart, but this is a way that it is being staged. Now, figures. Arjun had training in that and in heaven no less. He had training in all the all the skills and even in the heaven. And then there was also a parade by elephants. Um, Now, Bhim asked, so just like in the circus, we have the parade by, the latest circus, whatever may be in the village, there is a parade that goes on. So like that, after Arjun entered, there was a parade of elephants. Bhim said that he had replaced all the horses and cows with majestic elephants because mm, nothing speaks of a spiritual purification like a herd of elephants decorated with feathered, the herd of elephants decorated with the feathered the things they not crown exactly, but the headdresses, the feathered headdresses. Now, who needs? He was boasting of the grandeur of that event. He said, "Who needs simplicity when we can have extravagant extravaganzas?" So that was the it was a great splendor and pomp. This celebration was carried out. The ceremony continued pretty well. They even had a they had everything very grand. And then So then there were words of, comfort, like, if you feel defenseless in this modern world, you need not fear. We are introducing the iron blades. Iron blades, the finest purveyor of swords and spears. Now, don't miss it. You have to trust this sword, and for the daily. So, he was boasting of his superhuman strength, and that there was expert archer like Arjuna during the sacrifice, Rajasuya sacrifice of Yudhishthira. So uh, if the ceremony was that great, then the end also should be very, very great and grand. So it all ended with a bright flash and a majestic king Yudhishthir on a majestic looking throne. So audience was appropriately there, like they were in awe and reverence. The royal guests were departing after having collected their goodies, and bags full of some jewelry and some local locally made some stuffs like achar, pickle. Jokes apart, I'm just joking, but not like that. But they had their own goodies, and they collected some locally made stuff and a souvenir painting with the Pandavas who were artificially attached to the background. Unlike today's world, where everywhere you remove the background and attach, it was not like that. You remove in the computers, in this world of social media and computers, internet. What do? You remove background. So there today, if you see any photograph, you can never trust that it is the photograph, and it depicts the event where it could have taken place, and where these people were present. People remove the background is usually removed, and they patch with something else. So they had a souvenir with the Pandavas. A souvenir painting was gifted to all those attendees, with the Pandavas artificially added into the background. And this was so awesome. And rural people, as they discussed all the event, now there is always some event going on, and then there are gossip mongers, and then there are a handful of people who are the especially brought into to give the special effect to the event, and they are generally those people that are not at all concerned with that event round the year. They are just brought there to be present, to bring and some special effect to the event. So such rural villagers, they were gossiping among themselves. And who are they? Some people like a white turban, red turban, yellow dhoti, Neela kurta, something like that. We don't know the names of those people. These are the villagers who walked in, or who had also walked in into this grand event, but they were dressed ordinarily. So we address them like that. So the um, pila, what the turban, what is that turban called as? I don't know. The villagers usually wear that huge cloth around the head. So this turbans, the red, white, yellow, and pink, and then the uh, blue shirt, and then all such. The addresses are like that. So these people, as they discussed among themselves about how the sacrifice went and all, they were hoping. So they were hoping that they would get. Now there's a pun here, and in the storyline, they were also, some of them were also waiting to see Krishna there. So Krishna's autograph, probably they might be wanting Krishna's autograph there. Who knows? They were also expecting that, and uh, one person in a blue shirt, that blue shirt person, he was staring at his own hand, and at his own hand, and he was thinking that uh, what a feast he had. He was in that full mood of the wonderful feast that they enjoyed at the Rajasuya Yagya. So he said he didn't want to wash the hands because the aroma of the food was still in his hands, and it was giving him remembrance of that grand event that took place. So they were discussing among themselves that it was the greatest sacrifice and what a ritual and what a event they had, and they couldn't wait for another one. So then things went on pretty good like this, and that was the carry away talk of those people who were specially invited to be in this last seat. So these are the bunch of villagers or rural people, because they do a word of mouth usually, so that is why they are brought. Even if the event is forgotten or anything, they'll remember it and they will speak about it. So there are such people needed at such events to talk of the glories and whatnot. So there are some strategies always, and I don't want to go into that. But now, what is the storyline about? So they were gossiping among themselves about the event being so wonderful, and one of them then said, "Greatest sacrifice, wasn't it?" And then suddenly, they said they heard some sound, "Greatest sacrifice." You say that? And they looked around, and it was the blue shirt. He just screamed, "Oh my God! It's not, it's just a rat!" And we heard some sound. "Greatest sacrifice," you said, and it indicated disagreement. So they were a little surprised. So and they and they looked around, and then uh, they saw that it was a mongoose. They saw that it was a mongoose, and then they said, uh, how dare this person disagree when we are discussing and we are drooling in that the joy of the event and the festivities and what goodies we received, and then the food which he didn't want to have wash his hand for the sake of that. So when he saw that it was a mongoose. And what did the mongoose? What was strange about the mongoose, that not only that it couldn't speak properly, but half of its body was golden, and that was very unusual. And it was golden, not straight full, but down. It was a golden. Half of its body was golden colored, and it was vertically down the length of its body. The half of the body was golden, and the rest of the body, it is some blue or ash color. I don't know. I haven't seen for a while, but yes, it is ash color. And the mongoose, he disagreed with that, and it then went further in front of those people only and rolled around in the rice and wheat that was on the ground, which was scattered from the ceremony. And it looked at her body and said, just as I suspected. And then what did the mongoose do in pride? It went and rolled itself in the rice and the wheat that was scattered from the sacrifice. Usually in the yagya, they use those grains for the sacrifice during an offering, and they say swaha and put the grains. So at that time, some rice or wheat might have got scattered, and the scattered grains were lying there. And what did the mongoose do? It uh, uh, rolled itself onto those grains on the floor, and was convincing itself, yes, just as I expected, this is a pretty ordinary ceremony. That was its opinion. It's a pretty ordinary ceremony, it said. And the other person, the friend of the blue shirt, he took offense. He said, "Ordinary? You call that ordinary? It was a perfect." And they say, it was a perfect, a mix of capitalism and tradition. Now, the capitalism comes into the picture, and a little dose of glitz and glamour never hurts anyone. It's a mixture of spirituality and the spirituality and some glitz and glamour commercialism that brings a lump into the every eye, a lump in every eye, and a light in every throat. So now this is the comparison that is given, and usually people, we also see at the present moment, whenever some events are organized, they need to have such things, it is said, and this is a must, they say. And why some glitch must be added, then there must be some talks about it, some some discussion should go on even after the event is over. Those who are the main participants of the events have nothing to do with the event. After the event is over, they hardly remember it. It was done for a purpose, the purpose is served, and they forget. But then other people, they remember it for such a long time to come that it takes almost their whole life may get over and still the memory is there. So this is the world that is there. We must be aware of this, that this world around us is such. So these news channels and then the social media which is of the present times is such a thing. It will give undue importance to things which are not at all important. The very purpose for which any event was organized is being served, and these people are benefited. And what of the common public? The common public is left with the broken memories of the event, not knowing what the agenda was, and all that they remember is the crap commercialism, and they add spiritualism to it, and that is how they get degraded and never ever come up. So this is the storyline, and and it further goes through like this, that this is a reality of the present, that some things are organized and to give it the effect. These things are there. Lump in the eye, the glids is given to bring a lump to every eye, a light in every throat. A light in every throat means people will keep talking about the event, and a lump in every eye means the eyes will be glued there for unknown duration. So I don't know in the literal meaning I'm taking, but I don't know the purpose agenda of many people who might be doing so. And now there's these people, it seems, now you'll say that why this now as is the does the animal speak? And then this blue shirt and the other his friend, they tried talking to the mongoose, and the mongoose did reply to them, and it said that it didn't want to offend anyone. But just here now, next the storyline, what happens just here. So the mongoose spoke about the story about to those two people, and this mongoose spoke about story of a scholar, his wife, and his son and daughter-in-law. Now, listen how the storyline goes. The four of them lived in a little hut, and this little hut, and in ancient India, a little hut means what? In Orissa and Bengal, there are many huts you can see. In Orissa, especially, there are mud huts. People live in the mud huts. And even in the Bengal, most of the ancient India, they live in a mud huts, and many of our Vaishnav saints also had houses in the mud huts. So that is about ancient India. So they were living in the mud huts, and then the scholar and divided up the labor, and this scholar and his wife, and they how they lived a living in that is described. So they lived, and they had a great way of adjusting to their bare necessities. So the scholar would earn money here, giving some wisdom here and there, and the son also would go around with him, and the wife and the son, wife daughter-in-law would be in the house, staying in the house and cooking and handling the kitchen and the stuff at home. So once what happened was their village was struck by famine, and there was no food to be had anywhere. So gradually they had to cut down from the 3 square meals a day to two, and then gradually to one. So it was, and later, if it was lucky day for, they would get anything to eat. If it was a lucky day, they would, if they got anything to eat. So most of the other villages had moved out because of the famine, and yet these people continued sprinkling their wisdom on the fellow villagers and dependent. So when you are into giving wisdom to others, then you are dependent. You are dependent on having people around you who are willing to pay you in exchange for being, for being given your wisdom. So this scholar was earning like that. The scholar and his, so these people could not understand, the scholar and his son, they could not understand that What was keeping them grounded to that village in spite of the famine that had struck? Naturally, when there is a famine, people would move out of the place and go elsewhere where there is ample, there is some plenty of food stuff uh, for the entire living. So normally people would want to shift to such places to live. But there is a famine, and why are they not moving? Because they did not understand that they were they were attached to their way of earning, and which what was that he was a scholar and he was giving wisdom to others, and that is how he would get paid. So after almost a week, and they had to go hungry because everybody moved out and there was no food, so they almost went hungry. So the storyline, how it goes, that sometimes people don't understand where their attachment is, and once you understand where your attachment is, you must shrug it off in every possible way. So this scholar did not understand that there's no food, we must move out. When all others had moved out, why did he continue staying there? But anyhow, somehow he managed to get a handful of wheat from some passerby who happened to bump into that famine struck area. And he had luckily some wheat in him, wheat carrying with him, he was carrying with him. So uh, what did these people do? They guided him, and he asked them the address about whereabouts of all the places. And these people were into the giving wisdom, so these people helped out that person passerby, and in exchange he gave them the handful of wheat. So now what happened is, the scholar was surprised, and he really hoped that it wasn't the traveler who was looking. So what did this person do? He was very happy, he went home and had the wheat converted into flour and cooked, asked his wife to cook, and then they had food ready. And food ready. So all the while, the scholar had just had a fear in his mind. Now look at the fear. A handful of wheat after a week long struggle. For a week, they were almost hungry. And after a week, when they get a handful of wheat, they cook it and make a roti out of that. So the wife made a roti, and there was just one roti that could be made out of that. So this person was just about to have his meal, and when he was fearing that the passerby, the traveler, if he comes back and he asks back for his wheat, what would happen? So see the fear. Just one roti is made, and he has a fear of all this. So as he sat down, there was a knock on the door, and he was scared whether the traveler came back to ask for the wheat. And he saw that there was this uh, in, but in the place of the traveler, the stranger, they saw a young handsome man standing there who didn't say anything. And he just stumbled and said that he's very hungry. And did they have any food? He asked, do you have any food? And this handsome man who was knocking at the door, so uh, at such time, can you imagine what can happen if you are hungry for a week and you have only barely something you have to satisfy your hunger, and that is not even enough for one person, and there are four people to share it, and somebody stumbles into you at that time and asks for food? What will you do? Now this is the question. This is a question. What would one do? uh, so how people like us may react is, we cannot say that. I cannot say how I would react. How would any people with me who I have known for the past couple years, or 5 years or whatever, would react? Means that would be a test of how much you know the people, how they think, how they react, how they take things as. But this scholar, he was not just preaching bunch of rules, like, he was not just sprinkling some couple rules on anybody that would pass by. He was actively living by them. Now how is that possible? He was sprinkling wisdom for the sake of his belly, and then still living by them. His his whatever he was preaching, bunch of rules, not many, but his rule was that any guest should be served or treated like God. That was his rule. Or a God personality, like, any guest should be treated as a God. personality, God personality. That was the rule by which he lived. So the scholar, he welcomed the traveler and offered his roti, one fourth of the roti he offered to the traveler. The traveler just gulped it down and he asked if there was more. Then the son gave the next share away. So one roti and four people, so one divided by four, quarter roti for each person in the family. Then the traveler asked for the thirds and the fourths, and he also got from the scholar's wife, daughter-in-law. After the traveler had finished roti, then looked at their eyes and laughed. They were sad because 7 days of hunger is too much. A week's hunger, and after that also, if you receive something with great efforts and you have decided not to leave the place for whatsoever reasons, and and this happens, then natural the sadness also comes into the eye. It can't be hidden. So the traveler looked at their sad eyes and laughed, and then he explained, and they were sad because the roti was all gone. They didn't know who the traveler is, the stranger, and they just lived by their rule, which was treating any person who comes home like a god. And they had asked for food, and the traveler had asked for food, so each person offered his own share. Now what to do next? And they were little sad. So the traveler began laughing. He now why they were sad, I don't know. What was the reason for their sadness? I cannot understand that here, and it's not so relevant also here. But the traveler laughed and he introduced himself to them, and he said he was Indra the god. Now he was just testing them, and if they were ready, he was here to take them to heaven. So that was Indra in disguise who had come there to test them. And no, that wasn't, and this he wanted to take them to heaven. It wasn't like the that was the thing, and so now we shouldn't forget what happened to the mongoose. Now the storyline went like this: he was Indra and he had come to take them back to heaven. So the story isn't like that. The mongoose was actually, he was wandering on the earth looking for places where the great sacrifices are performed. And he had the mongoose had experimented with different grains, but the results were always the same. That his body did not turn fully golden, which meant that the sacrifice wasn't as great as that of the poor family. So that was his way of testing. So it wasn't so great as that of that poor family. And it had been rolling on the wheat and the grains on the ground from the sacrifice, and none of the places his body turned golden, it seems. So his body turned golden only at the floor where the wheat was placed in the house of the scholar, and it hidingly rolled itself on the wheat and found that its body turned golden. So that was the test, and that's all the mongoose had to say, and then was off. And it didn't have time to explain how it could talk in human language to those blue shirt and that his friend. So just roll with it, won't you? And disappeared from the view. Just roll with it, won't you? So there you have it. All the money spent, all the rich and famous involved in the event, and even the Hastinapur event planners got it, for it was a, and even all the Hastinapur event planners got it, and that too from the mongoose. And what was the rating given? 1 star. 1 star review, because of how the things went. So jokes apart, it is taken in the storyline. I got it somewhere and it is taken from there, but the comparison that they have made is wonderful. And I thought I would